Hello, dear listeners, and welcome back to the Move Nourished podcast. I'm your host, Alyssa, and today we are going to be talking about how to build nervous system resilience when the world is on fire. So, if you are paying attention at all, and even if you're not really, the world is a lot for a lot of different reasons, depending on the identity and role that you occupy and you perform in the world. And so a lot of clients come to me and the frustration and the concern that I hear expressed very frequently is I'm overwhelmed and I don't know where to start. Like it's this catch 22 of I don't have any energy or motivation to engage in the behaviors that I need to engage in to take better care of myself that will give me more energy and motivation. It's this trap of you don't have any energy. You're so overwhelmed, right? You're so like we don't have any time or you don't feel you have the resources in whatever way to start and stay consistent with the types of things that are going to help you feel better and give you more space and more bandwidth. But in order to get the bandwidth to do the things and keep doing the things, you have to start doing them and you don't feel resourced enough to start doing them. So it's this terrible bind that I have seen again and again that I just want to start by saying that is a very real thing. And that is a very real struggle that we're not given great guidance by the world that we live in on how to prevent that from happening, right? Because our world is not set up in a way that is encouraging to work-life balance and rest and space and healthy relationships and operating without shame. And that's the antithesis of the way that the world that we live in works. And so my intention for today and for today's episode is to give you a starting place and to give you a strategic starting place that I have used with like a place to start that I have used with dozens of clients for a way to break out of that cycle of I don't have enough energy to start and I know I need to start in order to do the things that would give me more energy, resources, bandwidth. But I just feel it's important to acknowledge that is a very real struggle and that I have seen dozens of clients that have come to me with the same thing. So if that's you and that's why you're here, welcome. You are not alone. It is a constant sort of negotiation. It is a dynamic. The parameters around it may change and what that looks like may change. So that is an ongoing negotiation with the world. That is an ongoing give and take and push pull that will change through the chapters of your life. But that no matter who you are, there's probably some version of that. It's this dynamic balance, this dynamic tension between the taking care of yourself and the world that is not set up to help us facilitate doing that. Let's dive into the strategy that you can use to start breaking that cycle. So here's the thing about changing your health. It is, and I have seen this so many times, and I find it so inspirational, but also so frustrating. It's this double-edged sword, right? All shadow work is. So you have to start somewhere that is small enough and manageable enough for you to not get overwhelmed and stall out, but it still has to be a big enough shift to be meaningful. What that looks like in any individual's case can look a lot different, but what I mean by that is you start small, but you start somewhere. And I want you to think about finding the place or finding the level and the frequency and the types of, we call them in clinical practice interventions, right? The changes that you are making. Look for the ones that feel like they're going to meet you where you are and are doable, but they are still going to challenge you a little bit. You're like not entirely sure you'll succeed. That is your zone of optimal challenge, right? That is your zone of optimal difficulty, they call it, I think, in education, right? Like it has to be hard enough to keep you engaged and to make an impact that matters, but not so hard that it overwhelms you and blows through your current capacity. That works in education, right? That's how they've studied. That's how students learn. And it's also how you make changes to your health. So start small, but start somewhere and look for and try and design your routines and your changes and your habits that you're trying to either stop doing or start doing. The way that you go about those should challenge you and push you slightly outside of your comfort zone, but not so far that you're like in a boat in the middle of the ocean and feel like you feel unmoored. So Start with something that is going to make a meaningful difference, that's going to have an impact, but is not going to be so ambitious that you can't keep up with it. And then you build from there. You reassess at regular intervals and you scale it from there. Okay. So, what are some examples? What do I mean by those types of things? In clinic work, I often found that when someone comes to me really like overwhelmed with very limited capacity to make changes, either like their life is lifing or they're very sick and their chronic health issues make it so that they have very limited bandwidth and very limited energy, mobility, what have you, for making the changes that are going to help them feel better. So when that happens, what we think about and what we strategize in our sessions are how do we like the first 6 to 8 weeks of someone's protocol in the Cunning Woman in the Regeneratrix program will be things that have starting with things that have a higher ROI, right? So you start with things that have a higher return on investment, right? So they require less of you in the short term and they give you more. What that does, again, is builds this bandwidth for you to go tackle the more strenuous pieces. So let me give you an example. So let me bring that back to earth so that makes sense, right? Things that have a higher ROI in terms of habits that will change your health, that require less investment on the front end and that will expand your capacity are things like supplements and things like herbal formulas. So when I have a protocol with a client, it encompasses, because protocols should be comprehensive, it encompasses food habits, it encompasses exercise, lifestyle stuff, sleep, stress management, supplement recommendations, and custom herbal formulas. But if someone's really low on the level of resource that they're able to offer to the project of changing their habits in the beginning, we start with just their supplements and their herbal formulas. There is some work there, right? Like you still have to consistently take those. You have to either order them, put them on reorder. You have to remember to take them. You have to sometimes bring them with you to work, right? There's some effort involved, but it's not the same amount of effort as, say, like going from eating like takeout or stuff that's not going to make you feel resourced and nourished to cooking all of your meals from scratch, right? What I mean by lower ROI, higher return on investment is you get a lot from putting in a less effort, right? That's what the definition of that is. So supplements and herbal formulas, yes, you have to remember to take them. Yes, you have to remember to keep them around, but that's about it. They don't require as much effort from you as trying to get yourself to go to the gym 5 days a week. So starting with those and doing that for 6 to 8 weeks is going to expand your capacity. You're going to get benefits from that. And then you can reassess and reallocate your inner resources to potentially taking on the things that are a little bit more labor intensive. Like changing your food habits tends to be more labor intensive. Changing your movement habits and building a movement routine tends to be more labor intensive. So if someone comes to me in that situation in clinic, we leave those for later. We do 6 to 8 weeks of just gauging how much space we have for those as we go, but just supplements, herbal formulas that give someone bandwidth, right? If you have 8 weeks of sleeping better after not sleeping well for who knows how many years, you're going to feel different. You're going to feel more resourced, right? If you can use magnesium and a nervous system formula, some milky oats, some chamomile, some passion flower several times a day to manage your stress levels and to keep your stress from getting out of hand, you do that for 6 weeks, your nervous system is going to give you more space. It's going to feel more spacious for you to start looking at your other habits and allocating effort and time and strategizing to uplifting and upleveling your other habits. If you would like some support and help and knowledge with that, complete with a list of curated supplement recommendations and herbal information for them to help you sort through the information on the dozens of different herbs that you can use to help support your nervous system, come join us inside of Capacity, which is my quick course for quick and dirty self-care for busy people who care deeply about the world. Head to the description of this episode for a link to that, and I hope to see you there. Dear listener, thank you so much for listening. This has been the Move Nourished podcast. I'm Alyssa, and I'll catch you next time.